Here's a short one with some thoughts that are bouncing around in my head. I was listening to Kylon Ginger's podcast, Successful Dropout. He had an episode on extreme ownership where he was talking to his wife about what that was all about. In the course of their conversation, it came out that he had at one time been in the Navy and had done some training or workup towards becoming a Navy SEAL. And he shared this story that's just totally stuck with me. And it was around the idea of no excuses. So he described, I can't remember the exact details, but it was their class needed to be in this particular building by a particular time. It was early in the morning, and they at like 5 a.m. or something, they got to there was a gate blocking them from getting a locked gate, blocking them from getting to the classroom. So they were all waiting outside the gate. The instructor eventually came out, and everyone got in trouble because they were not in class when class started. And so they spent the rest of the day just totally getting punished with different drills on the beach and this, that, and the other. And the notion from the instructor was essentially no excuses. The gate was locked. Well, someone should have figured out a way to break down the gate or get in, and just sitting here and just saying, well, the gate was locked, I couldn't get in. That's not how we get the job done. And I guess as a Navy SEAL, the mindset is there is the mission, and the mission must be accomplished no matter what. So I guess in this case, now whether there would have been consequences for destroying the gate or cutting the lock or whatever, who knows? But the overall takeaway from this story was it didn't matter that the gate was locked. You should have done whatever it took to get to the classroom. So I was really intrigued by this idea of no excuses that Kylon mentioned. And so I asked a friend of mine who had been an officer in the Navy, I said, so tell me more about this idea of no excuses. He said, oh, that was just drilled into us from day one at the Naval Academy. And so I said, well, okay, but if you did something wrong and someone said, why didn't you do this? Like, what were you supposed to say if there were no excuses? He says, well, you just said no excuse, sir, or something to that effect. And he even mentioned, that at one time he had been late to formation because of, he had an extra donut or something in the dining hall. And so when prompted for, why are you late? The only answer was no excuse. Some of this was also influenced by the recent writing of a manifesto that I put on my website. It's kind of a bulleted list of all the things I believe. And embedded and inherent in a lot of those things I believe is around the notion of really, really fully taking ownership. And when you fully take ownership, it's the opposite of making excuses. So I've been playing around with this idea and wondering how this could apply in our regular, ordinary, everyday lives. And I saw some stark examples this morning when a family member was sick, and suddenly all the plans for the day that I had were kind of derailed. I had planned to get certain things done by certain times, and it wasn't a life-threatening illness or anything like that. It was a very minor illness, but because this person was sick, it changed some of the dynamics of the day that I hadn't been planning on at all. And so I found myself saying, oh, well, I guess it's just going to be one of those days. I just didn't get this done or that done because this thing came up. Well, what can you do? And then I just thought, wow, what would it look like to just say, hey, I didn't get this done. No excuses. Instead of spending all the time into, instead of immersing myself in all the details of why it didn't get done, focus more of my energy on what can I do to still accomplish the mission today? The mission being to finish this particular training module for this course that I've been trying to wrap up forever. So what can I do to accomplish that mission versus writing it off and sandbagging myself with all the reasons why it's okay that I'm not going to, accomplish the mission today because I have all these, quote, legitimate reasons. So challenge, something I'm pondering today as I go about my day, you might want to try it on too, is what would it look like when things that you've committed to yourself or to other people don't get done? What would it look like to just, if they ask why, or if you find yourself wanting to explain why you didn't get it done, what if you just said, no excuses, or I'm sorry, I didn't get it done. I'm working on it now. I'll have it to you by this time. Or whatever type of new response you might want to offer. And if you come up with something good here, let me know. I'd be curious. Thanks for listening to The John Polster Show. Notes, links, and all that other good stuff for this episode are at johnpolster.com/podcast. Send your questions, ideas, or a simple hello to podcast@johnpolster.com. Want to stay up to date on new episodes and receive notifications of upcoming events? Register your email address at johnpolster.com/updates.